coming up on the next episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
Today, we're joined by Dr. Yvonne Kaye, a compassionate interfaith minister, an author, columnist, and grief specialist. She'll discuss how she helps people cope with the loss of loved ones. This deeply moving conversation is one you won't want to miss.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
You're now listening to Zuzu All Grown Up.
She's been featured in more than 20 films from the early days of film and television.
He is a psychotherapist and her loving husband.
Together, they are on a mission to brighten your day and your life.
It's a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to expect more.
It's time to get inspired with your hosts, Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
It's time to meet Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you believe that life is wonderful in principle, but for some reason just isn't so consistently in practice? Every life will have its ups and downs. But have you ever thought that if there were only more people around you encouraging, uplifting, and even inspiring you, then life would be more fulfilling? If only people like George and Mary Bailey were in your inner circle, then life could truly be wonderful all the time? If so, we've got good news for you, because you can find such people on this podcast and at zuzunetwork.com. This podcast is the vision of Karolyn Grimes, Zuzu, and Dr. Chris Brunell, illustrating how the timeless message of It's a Wonderful Life can be and is applied to our modern lives and situations. Indeed, when you take that message to heart, your life will become immeasurably more wonderful. Visit us at zuzunetwork.com and listen to this podcast series to learn more about how. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
Get ready for miracles. Get ready for Zuzu, All Grown Up.
Today's guest, Dr. Yvonne Kaye, has dedicated her life to helping others navigate the difficult terrain of grief and loss. Dr. Kaye's insights are both profound and comforting. Karolyn, Dr. Chris, over to you to begin this important conversation.
We have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Yvonne Kaye. Before we get into that topic, the empty chair, coping with the absence of a loved one at holidays and other life events, we want to let our audience know that you are an interfaith minister, author, columnist, humorist, storyteller, keynote speaker, trainer for corporations, addictionist, and thanatologist. Dr. Kaye, we're very grateful for your willingness to share your journey. Please elaborate on why you haven't forgotten your background and how you got to where you are today, helping people. Your insights will undoubtedly resonate with our audience.
Thanatologist, it comes from the Greek, thanatopsis, which is the study of death. That's what I do. All kinds of death and dying. So I work with people who are in the last stages of their life. I was trained when I was 18 by a woman called Dame Cicely Saunders, who was the founder of hospice in London. And she trained me, and I call the hospice nurses earth angels. I just think they're astonishing. We had them for my husband. They're just amazing people. I don't know why I keep doing, well, I do, as I said, because I'm active, so I need to have things to do all the time. And I seem to be drawn towards trauma and pain and grief of people. That's mainly because I've gone through it myself a lot. And so I like to help them with recovery and learning to live one day at a time, learning that no is a complete sentence. I'm not on my own. We are working together. And I was just quoting this just a minute ago from Mother Teresa. And she said, you can't do what I do, and I can't do what you do, but together we can make a difference. And that's what I found in my work.
Have you read any of Barbara Karn's books? She started the hospice in the Midwest. She has some really good books, so you might look her up.
So knowing that a thanatologist deals with support services, I don't think I've ever met a thanatologist before. They provide support services to individuals and families bereaved because of a traumatic, often sudden death. How do you assist in navigating through this loss?
Of course, everybody's different. No two people really grieve in the same way. And there are special things that I need to address right from the start, especially in terms of the death of a child, where, let's say, the mother and the father grieve differently, and there's a resentment that comes, like and it's usually he, I'm afraid, is not crying enough. He doesn't want to talk about it. I need to be comforted, whatever. And I have to tell them and explain specifically that people deal with this differently. Think of our culture. What have young men been told? If you disagree, have a fight, have a drink, but don't let your feelings come out. Unless it's anger. That's the good thing, they say. And the women we're told, at least in my generation, that we were told cry. So never the two shall meet. And that's what I explain to them. It doesn't mean that he is in as much pain as you are, and vice versa. And that's what I do, because people, I don't know where they get it from, but they come up with these ridiculous things like the majority of parents are divorced after the death of a child. Not true. Not in my experience. And I've been doing this, working with a compassionate friend since 1982. It is not true. So yes, I'm a fighter, and I do fight for their rights to be heard. I do.
Hospice care, that's such a unique and humbling stage of dying. Can you share who trained you in your work and how meaningful it's been in your life? I know you have many, many stories.
I was trained by, as I said, Dame Cicely Saunders when I was 18. And then another mentor of mine, she wrote the book about the 5 stages of death. And she was my mentor. I don't know if you ever saw her. She's like brushed 5 feet, and she was a fireball. She came from Switzerland, and she started going to the hospitals and seeing that cancer patients were not being respected. Because when I started working in the field, people thought cancer was contagious. It was terrible the way people were treated. And even children who went to school that had cancer, they were just left on their own. It was pitiful. So she took up this whole thing of talking about cancer, what it really is, what needs to be done, that they need encouragement, they don't need to be criticized. She was just amazing. It's been expanded from the 5 levels of grieving. There are other people that have written things, that added things. They're all pertinent, but she got it right from the start. She was definitely the person who started this, and I respected her enormously. So those were my 2 big ones. And then my patients. They taught me so much, because as a young woman, I thought I knew everything, which I didn't. And I learned from them. You know, with grief, people have an idea of what it is and what they would do, but unless you've been really through it, you can't really hit on that. And that's where listening is important. For example, people often ask me, well, what would it like to be a child in war? What's it like to be bombed? I can't find the words. So all I say is, imagine 9/11 day and night for 6 years. Trying to put that terror into words. And with my mother, the way she was, I became her mother when I was 8, because she was terrified, didn't know what to do, fell apart. It was a nightmare. That resilience is something that people really can learn, and they don't think they can. I have a Brit friend, her name's Wendy, and her only daughter was murdered by the boyfriend, and she had to go through being accused of it because they'd had an argument. So in addition to her daughter being stabbed to death, she had to go through all kinds of procedure from the police. So people don't know. And the other thing is that what to say to people. You know, people will often say in those circumstances, oh, you're doing well, right? You're up and you're working. They don't see them in their bedrooms at night crying and screaming and punching the wall. They don't see that. That's when I get night calls. And I tell them, if you can't think of anything to say, don't say anything. Look, we live in a nation of fixers, and you can't fix this. It has to go its course. Some people do well, and some people don't. The Compassionate Friends is a marvelous organization. When I get a call, I say to people, have you been to a Compassionate Friends meeting? I'd like you to go to one of those first. And then if you need me, we can go from there. But many of them go to those meetings and they get what they need.
So, Yvonne, often with hospice care, individuals and family face the end of stages of life differently. What makes that experience and the services you provide different?
I talk with my son about this a lot. As I said, he's in a retirement community. There's a lot of death there. And he says the battles he has with some of the families who don't want that person to die. And that's brutal. I belong to Compassionate. It's a legal thing. And they're trying to get this occurred in different states. They're in Oregon. I think they're in New Jersey. Compassion and Choices, they're called, to try and get this people who just don't want to be here. I've talked a lot with my children about this. We're very open about it. And I have DNR. I have a bracelet. I have it tattooed on my arm. And if I'm in that condition, my quality of life is zil. I don't want to be here. And they're fine. We went through a whole lot of talking about that. They're perfectly okay with that now. That's why I say be honest with your adult children. It's so important.
I'd like to share with you an experience that I had myself. The husband before this husband, about 40 years ago, his mother was in the stages of dying. We were all gathered around the bed and her eyes were glazed over. I mean, she was kind of gone already. And every time she would stop breathing or try to escape, her daughter would say, "Oh, Mom, don't leave us. Don't leave us. Don't leave us." I took my husband out in the hall and I said, "You've got to let her go. Your sister's keeping her here." And he said, "Mom, I've got Dad's medal here." They were Catholic, and he took out the medal and put it in her hand and he said, "He's waiting for you." And she went like that.
I don't know why people want people that they love to live a life where their quality of life is so awful.
Human nature, I suppose.
So is it possible to find humor in your work? And how is it received by those that you're working with?
Actually, with great relief, because the people around them are treading on eggshells. And then they get someone that's just very down to earth. And I can be very serious when it needs to be serious. But then something lighthearted, when I say things like, "Tell me about your son. What was he like? What did he do?" Always say their names. When those beautiful children were gunned down, I think it was last year or the year before, I have all their names on my refrigerator and I say them every day. And I always say to people, say their name. I mean, I grieved in my own way. My arm is my husband's memorial arm. And also, when he was in hospice at home one night, he was there for 27 days. All the family were there. And then when they left, the last one left at 10 o'clock. The hospice nurse moved over the bed to the chairs we were sitting in. And she stayed with me all the time. And I was holding his hand. And at 11:10, he stopped breathing, just quietly. And I said to her, "He's not breathing." So she had to do what she had to do because that's the law. And then I said, "Can I get in the bed?" So she pulled down the side of the bed and I got in and I was able to hold him because he'd been in such pain. I hadn't been able to do that for a long time. And I whispered in his ear and I kissed him goodbye. And I'm so glad I did that. So glad I did that because that was a perfect goodbye and it was all right. I know he was worried about me. That's the kind of man he was. And I remember when my children were all there, he was in a coma and then suddenly he sat bolt upright because he was fighting it at that point. And then he didn't. He just went to sleep. So the memory I have is a very important memory for me, that he went in peace, that I was here. I was there. And then I was 82 when he died, and that's when I got my first tattoo.
What did you get a tattoo of?
If you can see it, that one here, that's his writing.
Oh.
That was the last message that he sent me. And when my veterans saw it, they said, "You're going to get a sleeve." And I got very, very dignified, like the Queen. "I'm not getting a sleeve." Well, guess what? I have a sleeve. And every time I got one, they go, "We told you." So I'm waiting to have another one now. Everything that meant things to him, except this one here. I don't know if you can see it. But the doctor said to me, "That's a dragon, isn't it? What is that? How does that fit in with John?" I said, "No, that's me."
We all grieve in different ways when we lose a life. Can you share how you
Yes.
came to write about the empty chair and how that changed one's perspective?
That is also to do with holidays, the dreaded holidays.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
Start your morning right with premium coffee roasts available at ZuzuNetwork.com and drink them in your Zuzu All Grown Up coffee mug. Also perfect for tea and hot chocolate.
Stay inspired throughout the day with the same gratitude journal used by Karolyn and Chris, and check out t-shirts, hats, books, Christmas keepsakes, and more at ZuzuNetwork.com/shop.
Join Zuzu's network today at ZuzuNetwork.com/join.
Karolyn is creating an international network of aspiring angels, everyday people who believe that they can help make the world a better place by making life better for even just one other person.
Let us know you want to earn your wings at ZuzuNetwork.com/join, and Karolyn and Chris will send you inspirational material to support you in your journey.
We're back with more Zuzu All Grown Up.
People don't know what to do at holidays. They don't know who to invite. They don't know where to go. And sometimes people don't want to go anywhere. In my opinion, that's their right. If they don't want to go to a family thing, then don't go. But I have to teach them how to do that. They don't understand the pain that you're in and they criticize. That is a challenge that needs to be addressed. And you can do that. So I help them in that area to talk to people who judge them, because I think that's very inappropriate. The other thing is to look at who do you trust, because in early grief, the trust level is very, very low for what has happened, people that say stupid things. And the other thing, of course, is that when somebody dies, everybody's there, and then slowly, they all disappear. So they don't have anybody. And that's where people like me come in, and groups like the Compassionate Friends come in. I mean, there's plenty of help out there. There really, really is. You know, there was a woman, I think her name was Angela Miller, but she wrote this poem, which I think is incredible. If I'm training anyone, I have them read this. She wrote it. My child died. I don't need any advice. All I need is for you to have an open heart and hear me and walk with me until I can see the light. And I said, that's grief therapy right there. 90% listening. Once they start, I mean, it's like a roller coaster, because most people don't. They'll shut them up. You know, talk about a loved one and they say, oh, you got new curtains. Nice. So it's really a question of them looking to what they will tolerate and then telling me what's hurt them, so I can help navigate them towards not happening again. And the empty chair signifies someone that was there, someone that was really, really important, that important enough for them to still have their presence there, just in the chair, just the chair being there. Now, some families don't want that, but I found that the majority do. I always have an empty chair at my table. It's a comfort that that person once sat in that chair, to keep that memory alive. And sometimes it's a challenge, but you know, every so often you need something solid there, like the chair or photograph on the wall or whatever it is that touches your heart and brings that memory back. It doesn't take away the pain. It just soothes it a little bit. And time helps a little bit, but again, everybody's different. They really are.
When you're working with young children who've lost a family member, how do you explain to them how to manage their feelings of loss?
They explain to me.
Really?
My mum is an angel, and she's up in heaven, and she's looking down at me, and I miss her. And so I'm with my daddy, who lets me cry and talk about it. And the biggest challenge we have is when parents don't talk to the children, because the children then interpret that as the parent not caring. And children oftentimes are afraid to approach the remaining parent. And having been a child in war, I understand the invisibility of a child. I could tell you just about every single day of those 6 years, because I was invisible. And they would talk about the camps that they escaped from and what they did. all that kind of thing when I was a child. And people don't think children hear, but they do. And they also understand that terrifying silence where the parent has gone and the other parent's not talking about him or her. And they want to. They really, really want to. And the other thing that's very valuable, especially with teenagers, are the friends they have. If they have some friends that they can talk with, the parents can't be offended that they don't talk to them. If they've got some solid relationships, or even a teacher or a school counselor, they're very, very helpful. And they feel more comfortable with people. You know, sometimes for a child to watch their remaining parent mourn and cry, they don't quite know what to do. A child that's well balanced, so to speak, will go and hug the parent. Not being their parent, but just being together. They want to be together. So it's a job. It's work, because when I say everybody's different with children, everybody's different. And I have friends, remarkable friends who are siblings. One in particular, her name is Lisa, and she says, just give my number out. Don't bother to call, just give my number out. And with a sibling talking to a sibling, it's astonishing. Much better than any therapy could possibly be, because siblings are put in a category where people say, oh, brothers and sisters, remember how they used to fight? Not now. So what are they going to do with their absentee sibling, especially when they suddenly become an only child? So people like Lisa and her husband, who's not a bereaved sibling, when they go to the conferences of Compassionate Friends, they do a whole workshop just for siblings. And when I go, that's the one I sit in, because it's amazing. It's remarkable. And she has helped so many people. And there are siblings groups in the Compassionate Friends, only for siblings, because they feel looked at differently, they grieve differently. Some of them will just shove it down, and I explain to them there's a big difference between sadness and depression. Depression is a psychiatric disorder. It needs special help. Sadness is a normal reaction to what you think as an abnormal situation. And it's all right to be sad.
So what do you think is the most important message you can share with our audience about managing the empty chairs in their own lives?
Everybody is different. You know, I don't know what it was, some kind of dinner thing once where there was an empty chair. And people were talking about the person who had died. And then suddenly the child, well, he was a teenager. He got up and went and sat in the chair. And that turned everybody around. He said, this is what this chair is for. To me, it's a memory of better times, and I want to feel it. And so he sat himself down in the chair. But again, it's a choice. You can have one or not have one. Most people, I've discovered, prefer to have it because it becomes a symbol of what was. And in the early stages, that is valuable. In time, that eases with regard to the chair, but mainly people find it as a comfort. They don't see it as a threat or to make them grieve more. It's just a connection. And so I say to people a lot, you know, they say, what we're going to do, he or she is not going to be there at Christmas. And I said, well, do you want to have a chair for them? Oh, I never thought of that. And that's what they do. But they have a choice. They either do or everything is a choice. I can't say that enough. But they're very, very powerful messages. And people, as you well know, they interpret things in their own way. It doesn't matter what I say to them, but they might take it and then interpret it in another way. I have one case where this young man was in the Navy. He did 5 years in the Navy, and he was leaving, and he was coming home. He already had a job. He was a wonderful young man. So he got a ride home from where he was stationed, and the man had been drinking. So long story short, he went through the windshield. And his parents, especially the father, well, they were both devastated, obviously. But the father, he just couldn't work. So I had a big fight on my hands with his company. I mean, they give them 2 weeks bereavement leave. So I got him 6 months, and he's back now doing comparatively well, as one can be, because this is a death you never totally recover from. It's the wrong order of nature. You're not supposed to bury your children. He talked to me a lot about the anger that he had, and the anger that he had at the police because they took their good old time to get a report out. I mean, I'm talking about 6 to 8 months.
Oh.
And where I live, it's immediate with the police. It's immediate. So he went through all that agony, and then the agony of the insurance company that were corporate America. I used to call my older son, who's been in corporate America for years, and he'd say, "You're not going to win, Mum." But I did. They wrote to this man and they said, "We just had a letter from Dr. Kaye, which was very strong in its content." So I think in my line of work, it really has developed more of me being a fighter than I was before, because I just see so much injustice in bereavement. 2 weeks off, I had a case where 4 sons died in a fire, all 4 of them in New Jersey. And she was given 2 weeks off work. Where's your head? Where's your heart? Even when I think of her now, and she ended up adopting 4 boys, she and her husband, after that. But in their own time, you cannot push grief. You just can't fix it. So the listening, the compassion is so crucial, and the laughter.
Do you have any resources to help someone during loss?
Well, obviously the Compassionate Friends. That was founded in England by a hospitaller cleric. He was working with 3 young women who'd had stillborn babies, and there was nothing. And so the 4 of them sat around a table, and the Compassionate Friends was born. There's so many stories of help groups like that. And it's all over the world, everywhere. So I definitely recommend In the Death of a Child. With a murdered child, the parents of murdered children, it's a very powerful group. And that began in Philadelphia. And they met with other people whose child had been murdered. And that's the Parents of Murdered Children started. Then there are spouses groups all over the place in hospitals. Now, sometimes they just have a 6-week course. But then I haven't come across a lot of groups like the Compassionate Friends for Spouses. I haven't come across that yet. I keep looking. There are some remarkable therapists who have groups in their offices, and that works very, very well. But they really do need a support group, because all these groups are free. And a lot of people who are left on their own don't have money. They don't have insurance. They don't have the money to pay. I have a sliding scale, obviously. I know what anguish is. I know what terror is. I know what pain is. And you can't ignore it. So those are the ones that I know of and recommend highly, those groups. Now, in terms of cancer, I recommend what I call Gilda's Club. They've changed it to something called Cancer Alliance. It was based on Gilda Radner, who died very young from ovarian cancer. And her family started these places. They're all over the country. And they're not treatment places. They have all kinds of things like painting and storytelling, and I do the laughter one, and they're a grief group, a ton of different workshops that people can go to. They're quite remarkable. Another one called THIN. I'm not sure what it stands for. I think it's Family in something or other. That's in Bucks County that I know. Again, because they know grief, so they deal with helping grief, not dealing with the grief, even though they have grief workshops. So there's a ton of these things, and Google anything about grief support groups, and there's a ton of them out there. And I really encourage you. You know, some people say, "Oh, I don't want to go because I don't want to hear other people's awful stories," especially those that have been around for a long time. And I said, well, they come back to help you. That's what they're there. I mean, there are people whose child died 20, 25 years ago, still go to meetings to help the newcomers. And it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. And I'm very, very honored to be associated with them.
If anyone would like to contact you and they want more information about what you shared with us today, how would they go about doing that?
I have a website, just my name, YvonneKayeWisdom.com, and I'll spell that. It's YVONNEKAYE, wisdom, WISDOM.com. And on it, it has everything. It has my podcasts, what I do, my phone numbers, my emails. And I promise you, if you phone me, even if you just want to scream, and I'm on another call or I'm not there, I will get back to you within 24 hours. I will get back to you. So there's everything, my podcasts, articles, everything's on there. So they can get to know me and see what it is they like and what they don't like.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
To find out more about the organization featured in today's episode or a previous episode and to learn more about how you can help, go to zuzunetwork.com/beanangel.
Out here in the middle of these acres, it can feel like you're the only person on earth. That's how it feels when you're struggling with your mental health. But you don't have to feel alone. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
Have you heard? Affordable healthcare is better than ever. And right now there are more carriers and plans to choose from. If you're between 18 and 64 years old with a household income of $25,000 or less, this message is for you. Right now, the government's Affordable Care Act is available for individual and family health coverage plans with little to no cost to you. Don't gamble your health. Call Health Care for All. 70% of callers qualify for a zero-cost healthcare coverage. See if you are one of them. Call now. Our agents are standing by to help you get the health insurance plan you and your family needs and deserves. If you're uninsured or struggling to afford your current health insurance, help is just a phone call away. This is not Medicaid or Medicare. This is the marketplace with the largest selection of healthcare plans from the Affordable Care Act. To find a plan that's right for you, call 800-788-2406. That's 800-788-2406.
A careless driver can change your life in an instant. Do you know what to do or who to call? If you've been injured in a motor vehicle accident and don't have an attorney, call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free consultation. We can answer all of your questions and estimate the potential value of your case. Call Auto Accident Help Desk and connect with an expert personal injury attorney.
Call 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312.
Don't worry how to handle your medical bills, lost wages, and pain. We will get you the money you deserve.
They got me way more than the insurance company offered.
The consultation is free, and you don't pay any legal fees unless we win or settle your case. Make the smart call if you've been injured in an auto accident. Call Auto Accident Help Desk for a free legal consultation.
Call 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312. 800-348-7312.
Auto Accident Help Desk.
Zuzu's book club features recommendations from Zuzu herself on books she loves and thinks you will love also. All of the books that the club reads, fiction and nonfiction, are inspirational and uplifting. Folks, this is a life-enhancing club to be part of. You can sign up for free at zuzunetwork.com/book club. That's zuzunetwork.com/book club.
This is Zuzu, all grown up.
People who are maybe in social work or therapy to consider doing what I do. There aren't enough of us, and we're desperately needed. Unfortunately, the level of deaths are rising. When I work with the recovering community, I tell them I'm fed up with going to funerals. So let's get into sobriety here. It's tragic. I understand suicide. People are so judgmental about suicide. But if they get to that point where they just can't handle any more pain, I get it. That actor, who I really love, who's a comedian.
Robin Williams?
Yes. Nobody knew he suffered. And that's the thing. The shame around mental illness in this country is appalling. And so people stuff it and they won't talk about it. My son has depression. It took me ages to get it out of him. And then he went to therapy, and thank goodness everything's good with him now. And he helps a ton of other people just by being open and honest on Facebook about what he went through. And that's the kind of thing that's necessary. But you don't have to be a thanatologist. You don't have to study grief. Just take some courses so you understand it. And remember that Angela Miller poem that all they want you to do is listen and walk with them until they see the light. It's really easy. You know, sometimes I get these reports and I just write, there are no words. There are no words for the pain There was one case I talked about Wendy, her only child was killed. And the police interviewed so many people, and they interviewed him and let him go. They didn't see anything. So he showed up as a friend's house of the woman he killed. He killed her friend, he killed her friend's sister, and he killed a 3-year-old because she saw what happened. Some of the cases I've heard, I find it challenging to believe it, that a human being does to another human being what they do. I don't get it. I remember my friend, Dr. Dan Newman, he lives in Cincinnati and he has a similar background to me. We're very, very good friends. He wrote a book called Grief Behind Bars about prisons and what happened with the system when someone's sentenced to death. And it's absolutely brilliant. And I say, when you have courses where you're teaching criminology, that's the book. They're not interested at all. So we also have to face people about, I know the right way, and they don't. Because if there's no compassion and no ability to listen without judgment, they don't know what they're doing. I know that's brutal, but it's true. Grief is a specialty. You know, when anyone's like that and they want to find a therapist, I say, please at least ask them, are you familiar with grief? Like you are with trauma. You know, you would be perfect. Because it's trauma. That's what it is. So that's basically what I recommend, that they go to support groups, and then if they want me, or keep it simple.
You have given us a fount of knowledge here today, and I know our listeners are benefiting from it, and I appreciate the fact that I see your heart is in all that you do. Maybe you're an angel on earth. Who knows?
I understand what you're saying about my heart, and that's because I'm so grateful. The gratitude is an enormous part of my attitude. The new seminary was where I went into in New York. That was founded by a man, a rabbi actually, who was one of 20 children, and they all perished in the camps, except him. So obviously he had this attitude about anti-Semitism and what happens with racism. So he created a new seminary where people will come from all walks of life, all faiths, all different, and we learn so much from one another. So he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but what a miracle man he was. So you know what? I've been listening to you. I've been exposed to some amazing people. They really have, who are willing to share their experience, their strength, their hope, their purpose, their ideas with me. And I'm very grateful. And I'm very honored that you invited me. Thank you.
Well, it sounds to me like you've had a very creative and interesting life, but I also think you have a wonderful life.
Yes, I do. My 4 children, my greatest achievement. Every one of them has lost their best friend to death. Car accidents, 2 of them were car accidents, one was suicide and the other one cancer. So they know it. I remember when my son Colin, my older boy, when Katie was killed, that's my oldest daughter's best friend, that he was 11 and he came downstairs and he was livid. He said to me, "You're a grief specialist. What are you going to do about Katie?" I was so glad he was angry. Much better that than shoving it down. But they've all gone through this. So unfortunately, and at my age, I've lost a ton of people, my best friends. So I get it. I get it.
Thank you again. We hope to see you sometime down the road.
A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Yvonne Kaye for joining us today and sharing her wisdom on coping with loss. We trust that her insights have provided comfort and clarity to all of our listeners. Until next time, stay well and take care. You've been listening to Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you know someone who is earning their wings? Someone practicing kindness and service to others? Perhaps an organization or initiative helping make the world we live in a kinder, sweeter place.
Or maybe you've witnessed the miraculous, the divine, the magnificent in some way in your life, and you'd like to share it with others. Go to zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory and let us know more.
You may end up being featured on an upcoming episode of Zuzu All Grown Up. That's zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
We hope you've been inspired to live your most wonderful life now and to help those around you do the same.
Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, there are people who care about you, and your life makes a difference.
It is a wonderful life.
Check out ZuzuNetwork.com for more on today's and other episodes, including transcripts and merchandise you won't want to be without.
New episodes are coming soon.
For transcripts of today's broadcast, go to ZuzuNetwork.com/transcripts.
Watch a video clip of today's episode at www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. Then click on the Reels tab from the top of the center of the page. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up. Catch up on past episodes and discover currently premiering and upcoming episodes as well, and get helpful links and exclusive clips from our recordings. That's www.instagram.com/Zuzu All Grown Up.
Zuzu All Grown Up with your hosts Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Chris Brunell.
Announcer and guide Seth Kennedy.
Executive producer Kevin R. Stillmock.
Coordinating producer Holly Ann Way.
Technical producer Stella Joelle.
Managing producer Karina Filatova. A Wonderful Land production.
In collaboration with Radio Wonderful.